G'day, welcome back to the show. Daryl Nicholson with a local author based in Toowoomba with Roz Berg. How are you, Roz?
I'm good, thanks, Daryl. How are you?
Look, happy and joyful. And we've been
Yeah.
off camera talking
Yes.
about your latest project that you've been doing. So
Yes.
just before we get into the book, it's called Winter to Spring in the Australian Bush.
Yes.
Tell me briefly, how did you come about putting this book together?
Okay, so many years ago, well, first off, to go way back, when I was young, I was about 8, my mother and father decided to buy property on the outskirts of Ipswich.
Yep.
It wasn't a big property, just under 10 acres, and it was very much virgin bush, and it was packed with all the native wildlife. We were really, really lucky. We had the koalas, the kangaroos, and lots of snakes, which are not my favourites.
No.
Those giant spiders, you know, the wolf spiders. Anyway, those things I used to like to share the bathroom with you. Didn't like them much. But all of the animals, so the birds, we've always fed the birds. I don't know, these days, you know, we're not so sure about whether that's the right thing to do or not because of all the preservatives that are in the flowers before you even get the bread, apparently, which I only recently became aware of. But so we have a little tray on the kitchen window, off the kitchen window, and the tanks are just outside of the window. So all of the birds would come. So there's cockatoos, rosellas, the lorikeets, greenies, the magpies, the butcherbirds, or what we call butcherbirds, or wicky birds, so the whole gamut, the whole range. Mum loved her gardens, so Dad built her a greenhouse, so she had a jasmine vine and some other vine growing up, ivy or something growing up on the outside, so that also used to attract the birds. So we've grown up with the birds, and well, I always call them rabbits, but they're hares, you know. There are rabbits around now, but mostly the hares, and every time I'd see one, I'd sing that silly song, you know, run rabbit, run rabbit, run, so they'd take off. So the koalas, we tried to care for as many animals as we could because, you know, when you grow up with them like that, they're just part of your life, you know, and you love them. And I was telling you earlier about the frill lizards. And we used to just catch them, and we have them as pets, and we wore them like brooches. And when Mum would come upstairs from doing the washing or whatever she'd been doing, they'd be all hanging on her curtains, and she hated them. So and frogs. Like I said, the snake's not my favourite thing. When you come eyeball to eyeball with a red-bellied black snake, it's underneath a water tank, and you've bent over to get a drink of water, and the snake's eyeballing you. It's a pretty scary thing, especially when you're only little. So you know, so we had the horses and all the normal pets, you know. And across the road there was a farm, and they had the pigs and the cows. So we learned how to milk the cows and run over at night and get a fresh pail of milk and things like that. People just don't. Most people don't get to experience that. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and as most country people know, it can be really hard on the land, and as over the years, the weather's definitely changed, and it's affected everybody, and it's also affected our wildlife, and it's affected our properties, and you know, a lot of people suffer, and so do the animals. And as we've seen in the recent fires and things, but that's extreme, and I didn't put any of that in the book. No. But I guess my love of that, it's just in there, you know, like it is with most of us. And so I wrote a poem. I'm a poet. I've been writing poems for a long time. I was fortunate enough back in 2000 to be invited over to America to compete for the World Poetry title. And there were 3,000 people there. 2,000 of them were poets, and they were from 78 different countries in the world, which was astounding. And they were every colour, race, creed, every language, and they were amazing. And some of them were so theatrical. I wasn't. I was scared. I was really nervous. I hadn't read a poem to anybody. I just wrote them. And I picked one of my favourites. It's like a ballad called Gold Fever. It's still one of my favourites. And we had to read in separate rooms and things like that. So that's probably another story for another time, but it was a really amazing adventure, and I missed the winner beat me by 0.6 of
Oh,
a
wow.
mark.
Really?
Only 0.6, and I was like, come on. But, you
Wow,
know,
yeah.
in between my 0.6 and the winner, there were a couple of other people that were ahead of me. So
Yeah.
it was very, very close.
Excellent.
Very close. And the Americans were like, I think some of them must have gone to theatre or theatrical school or something. They were, you know, like really put everything into it. I just got up and basically read it and said it. But when I came out, there was some other Aussies there. And I didn't know because there were so many of us. We were all broken up into individual reading rooms. When I came out, they were really emotional and they said to me, I was like Banjo Patterson.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, that was the biggest compliment I'd ever got. Anyway, so I mean, that was then and that was wonderful. And I guess after that, I always thought I should do something with my poetry. And I still plan on putting it together in a book. And I've broken it up into various sections. You know, life, love, bit of humour. There's some naughty little limericky ones in there that just for a bit of fun. Not too naughty, just
No.
You know.
Yeah.
And a couple of people have bought some of the poems and made them into we made them into posters for them that they liked years ago. So this was one of those poems. So long story short, this is one of those poems that I wrote when I was sitting on my own veranda looking down my paddock. And it was covered with those little wild purple flowers that you get. And there was a horse across the road and he was running around with his mane flying. And the water was sparkling on the dam. And it was just one of those perfect early mornings where you're sitting on the veranda with a cup of tea and you're just looking and seeing everything, you know, the sky, the colours, the birds flying around, just every little thing you notice. I do anyway. They're like right down to the little grasshoppers and the frogs, and I just think they're marvellous. So I guess that's how this all came about. And I've tried really hard to get as many animals in there that I could.
I know. I was just going through it before. You've got the snakes, the butterflies, possums,
echidnas,
echidnas. Yeah, there's quite a lot covered.
And magpies.
When you showed me the book, I'm quite fascinated. I thought, who's your illustrator? But you're the illustrator as well.
Yes, I'm the illustrator.
So you're the writer, the poet, the writer, and the illustrator. So, and the project was pushed along by your late father. He said, when are you going to finish that book?
Yes, yeah. Well, because I did start originally the very first, I guess, early effort was probably back in 2010. And I was looking after Dad after my mum had passed away. And I rejoined the Ipswich Art Society and I was going in there and we had this wonderful lady who decided to come along and give us the benefit of her knowledge and skills, and she was an illustrator for children's books. But she came from Poland. I wish I could remember her name, but I can't, it's too long ago. It'll come to me later, I'm sure. But so she showed us the basics, and we had a fun weekend where we learned the basics about how to put a book together. And she said, do you have something, to all of us, she said, do you have something that you think you would like to work with? And I had another story that I was going to do, one I made up for my son when he was only like 3 or 4. And I still will do that one, but probably be a little down the track. And this was a poem, and I thought, I wonder if I could do this poem, I could probably turn it into something. So I just started with that, and the more I worked with it, the more I fell in love with the idea. And then I started to think about altering it and adding in more animals and changing it a little bit. So it kind of evolved, and as the years went by, I did a one little dummy book, and then a few years later I printed it off when I think it was Big W had a $6 soft cover photo sale. I put it together and made like a little A5 book, and it looked pretty good. It was a combination of things, some earlier illustrations I'd drawn and some actual photographs I've taken myself of the possums and the koalas and things, kangaroos. Like I said, fortunate enough to have those things in the backyard, so could wander out and take some photos. So over the years I've got thousands of photos, so there's plenty there to reference, which is great. And so I started to draw them out, and I guess everybody just has their own sort of style. I've always loved trees, mad on trees, and I have so many thousands of photographs of different types of trees. They're our lifeblood. They're our oxygen. They're our life source. They hold our earth together.
They help make rain.
Yeah, and besides that, they're beautiful. And the colours, because I'm studying art. I'm doing creative arts degree at USQ. But I've always been, like most of my family, are very talented artists. There's a few way better than I am, but they don't do anything with it, which is, to me, really sad, because they should. And my son has recently started drawing as well, and it's a new talent that he's just discovered, and he blew me away. He sent me some photos, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty advanced. So I'm sort of trying to encourage him. So drawing them, you develop your own style, and you look at different photos and the photos I've taken, and then I try to change it. So there's not really one set style of drawing in this book. It wasn't what I was about. I would write. I'd look at the words that I'd written, and then I would look at the photos that I had, and then I would try and think about what would be a nice way to put that together with that. And then I just would start drawing, and I'd take a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and like compose a new picture. And it just sort of evolved. So I think there were about 8 drafts before I finally came up with this one. And even after the first book, I only printed 5 the first time. I really wanted to get it finished too. So because my dad was really saying to me, when are you going to get that book finished? When are you going to get that? And so I thought I really should get this book finished, because he passed away just before Christmas last year, which is always really hard, really hard. But he was 91. I know this probably sounds a bit strange, but he had seen so many things in his life. He'd been in the Air Force, I think he was in the Dutch Air Force, he was a champion cyclist. He rode long distance, like he would ride from Brisbane, Wynnum was where he grew up, to Warwick on his push bike. And I think he held a record, and I'm not even sure if it's been broken yet. I'm not sure on that. But he said to me once that it would have gone quicker, but he had to stop for a flock of something, I don't know if it was pigs or sheep or something, to cross the road along the way, and he had to wait like 10 or 15 minutes while they all crossed. And like, I know he would ride from Brisbane to Bow Desert, just to catch up with friends and things. So he was very fit. He was very mischievous, a bit of a character. Did some funny things that I won't talk about here, but he's just a real character. And Mum, bless her, we lost her in 2009, so she was younger than Dad. But Dad kept, and so sadly my mum never got to see it finished either, which it's one of those things that you wish went differently. But then the Dad kept saying to me, when are you going to finish it? And so I got it finished in November, and he was over the moon. He really was very emotional. He's a very emotional man, a bit sentimental. So I guess in for that was the real driving thing for me. I really just wanted to get it done, and besides for myself, because it was something I think I've been like probably a lot of people. We draw from when we're very little, and some of us have a natural thing for it. Some of us love it, might not be very good at it. Some of us are really good at it and don't do it at all. So it's just one of those things that's always been there in my life, the writing. When I was little, I used to sit on the swing and make up little songs, and I think that's probably where my poetry writing started. And then I'd draw the little animals, and you use whatever source you can when you're growing up. So I remember, because I'm pretty old now, the Aristocrats. I don't know if you remember the Aristocrats. They were great, and that was like a little love story for animals, and I think that had a real effect on me. Those sorts of cartoons. I still love the kids' movies to this day. I'd probably rather go and see them than some of the other movies that are out there. You know. So there's so many ideas going on up there. So many things I'd like to do, and there's books that I'd like to make for particular purposes, like so that I could raise money for some particular charity and things. So there's lots of ideas going on up there, but this is the first one, and
so it's a great start, and look, excellent, well put together. As you said, you worked with a graphic design team and publisher, and
it was
bit
wonderful.
of an adventure,
because I did it for a project at uni. I decided to, I asked if that would be okay, because it's not normally what one would work on in when you're doing your degree. But there were very many good reasons and valid reasons. But actually, I think in the end, it was a very, very good idea for me, because I had to do all of the research, and I had a set time frame to do it in, and I'm good with working to set time frames, and so I had to research all of the project side of it, on how to go about doing it, and all the things that were involved in it, like doing the artwork and writing the story is just one very small part of it. Then there's copyright, and there's editing, and there's photographers and graphic designers and print people that you have to know what you're talking about with paper quality and soft cover, hard cover. I didn't know any of that, and I'm still learning. I don't. I really have just scratched the surface, you know, of what you need to know. But you don't need to know all of that. That's why you go to the experts, you know, to get them. That's right. Their knowledge.
Now the book, what age is it? Sort of like I've read this, and I'm going to read a part here. Spiders and snakes find warm caves. Wombats burrow under the ground to sleep. Bats like to hang out upside down, holding on with their feet. And what you were saying before is you get all these images and you just put them together. So, so the words came first.
Yes, words come first, and then I'd start to do the illustration, and then whatever illustration. So I guess they both feed each other. So the illustrations will be come from the words, the initial words, but then when the illustrations take on a bit of a life of their own, then I would go back and revisit the words. So it was a little bit like that, you know, a little bit of to and fro.
So mums and dads, easy for them to read to their age group. What age group were you sort of targeting?
I think, well, we'll say 0, because I don't know what age. Some parents like to start reading to their babies very young, which is a really been proven to be a really good thing, especially music and things as well. Right sort. So I would say from 0 to now, depending on the child and their interests and their abilities, I would think up to maybe say 7, 8, 9, something like that. And now I have used, if you have a look inside at that font. Sorry.
You go.
Just there.
That's the one I read just in.
We'll do. So if we go to this, you'll see that the font is the same font that they teach in the classrooms. So that should make it easy for the children to go from reading at school to reading the book, either with mum and dad's help or on their own. So they shouldn't have any problems recognising the way that a letter is written, because everybody writes differently.
Certainly.
And so I thought that might be a good thing to include in the book.
And one of the things I like, you've got at the back of the book fun facts on the seasons and animals in the story. So if they want to look up, let's say blue-tongue lizards, you've written here, blue-tongue lizards live across most of Australia. They like the open country with lots of cover, like grass, rocks, logs and burrows. So it gives them more information to go,
a little bit more.
So that's great. And you've actually fact-finded these. It's all true facts.
Yes, they're all true
and
facts.
Copyrighted,
and
so
as best as I could find. And the reason that I included that is because besides being a book on native Australian animals and the hare, which is not native, it's imported, but we call it owls.
Yep.
It's been here for a long time.
Yep.
But even that little fact is in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's to try and help children, if they've got a question, mum and dad or whoever's reading it to them, grandparents or maybe teachers, there's just a little bit more information at the back that they can go to that will help their little inquiring minds along a little bit. And I'm hoping that from that they get a little bit of factual information. If they're inclined to, they might want to go a little bit further and learn a little bit more.
Good.
I couldn't fit a lot of information in there, so there's just a little bit on each.
And where can people get hold of the book? We've
Okay,
got it available in the CBD of Toowoomba, which is very good.
Yes.
So tell us where that's at.
So Hartley's News Agency is selling them.
Yep.
The USQ Bookshop, Omnia, I think it's Omnia Books.
Yep.
They also have them in stock, and from my personal Facebook page.
Okay, and your Facebook page is?
Just Roz Berg -author.
Okay. So I'll put all those links up there so you can see that through the video. You can see that. So excellent. How much is the book? Because people do ask that. So.
Yes. So if you're buying it and it has to be posted, it's $35, and that includes postage. If you're buying it from the stores, I believe they're $30.
Okay, from
the stores.
Okay, right.
So it's just depends on how people want them posted.
So Hartley's News Agency down in the CBD, opposite nearly central, the Rock actually, nearly opposite the Rock, the new building that Henry Wagner built, and also out at the USQ at the bookshop there. So that's great, and you can go to Roz Berg -author and have a look there. So that's excellent. A lot of content there today. So
thank you.
I think it's a great publication, and please, if you've got any inquiries, just send Roz a message. And she can get you a copy of that book. $35 postage and handling, all included.
Yes.
So, well, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
And we're going to go off and record another segment for Good Morning Toowoomba. So, if you haven't liked Good Morning Toowoomba, do that. Follow that over there. But this is probably the big interview with Roz, and I really do want to thank you for your time today. And
thank you.
Look forward to working with you a bit more on this, because I think it's an exciting project and needs to be shared.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching the show, Toowoomba, Warwick, Stanthorpe, and wherever you're watching around the world. I'm Daryl Nicholson with Roz Berg. Take care.